Hello and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Daily Triple. That's your no shit gaming news video. 3 news stories in one video with 0 faff. It can often feel like there's little to get excited about in gaming these days as various corporations find new ways to screw over their consumers and there's always controversy around every corner. However, there are still a few titles out there that inspire confidence, and as a bit of positivity for a change, I'm going to talk about the new game Black Myth Wukong. As a country as a whole, China is doing a whole lot of questionable stuff, and gaming isn't excluded from that, but this game definitely looks promising. Could this finally be the game to break the Chinese game stigma? Black Myth Wukong is a new action RPG coming out of China based on the 500-year-old classic story Journey to the West. As a Westerner, you may not be familiar with the book itself, but it's one of those stories that has influenced countless other successful tales. The most notable for me personally is Dragon Ball, as Goku's character is heavily influenced by the book's main character, Sun Wukong. From his tail to the bow staff to riding the Nimbus Cloud, transforming into the great ape Ozaru, all that comes from Journey to the West. Ninja Theory's game Enslaved Odyssey to the West was also a loose adaptation of the story. The game was first announced yesterday with 13 minutes of alpha gameplay that looks very impressive. All that is confirmed about it is that it's the third-person action RPG, which has led some to jump to the conclusion that it's a Souls-like, but that may be premature. It certainly looks to have similarly deliberate and considered combat that we associate with the genre, but that describes so many different third-person melee-based action games for the past 10 years. Until other staples of the genre like Metroidvania level design, roguelike mechanics, or brutally crushing difficulty are shown, I'd be hesitant to definitively label it as a Souls-like. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like the Souls-like tag is thrown around far too frivolously. To me, it looks about as Souls-like as 2018's God of War, which was clearly heavily inspired by From Software's work, but stood out on its own with its own merits. That said, I won't deny the clear combat similarities. Now, despite those similarities, the game has a lot of unique qualities going for it, such as the transformations. We see the main character, Sun Wukong, transform into a bug and fly through the map, and then also some kind of monster to fend off multiple attackers. Transformation is a huge part of Sun Wukong's character, which should come as no surprise to any Dragon Ball fans. In the book, he is a master of 72 different transformations, so if that's anything to go by, there should be a huge amount of gameplay variety. During a boss fight towards the end, we see him summon duplicates of himself to take on an enemy, as well as some ability which freezes the target mid-air. He also seems to transform or power up into a different creature which buffs his staff with fire at both ends, in addition to using various acrobatic moves. At one point, the footage even goes full Dynasty Warriors, as the game throws dozens of enemies at Sun Wukong at the same time. The game is being developed by the Chinese indie studio Game Science, which is best known for the free-to-play MMO RTS Art of War Red Tides. The studio is made up of staff who formerly worked with Tencent but left out of dissatisfaction to form their own studio. The team is only small, but the fact that they've made something this impressive that outshines so many AAA titles like Anthem or Fallout 76 or WWE 2K20 is truly astounding. However, this could easily fall into the growing pit of games that look incredible at first, only to look like total shite at launch, or not launch at all. According to the official website for the game, which is translated by Google, so bear that in mind, the studio shared the footage now as a method of recruiting new talent for its vacant positions. It also explained that the game will be coming to PC and all mainstream platforms, possibly even cloud streaming services. Despite coming 500 years on from the original book, they said that the game won't take 500 years to come out, but they will only release it when they are satisfied with the product. It's funny that that's actually noteworthy these days. When discussing the game's payment model, they explained that this is a single payment deal where you buy the game once and that's it, you know, the old-fashioned way, but that DLC and non-numerical in-app purchases are still on the table. Black Myth Wukong has got lots of people interested, as the official upload of the video by the devs is currently at an impressive 475,000 views at the time of writing, but on top of that, IGN's upload of the footage has over 1.8 million views and 99,000 likes. China has a real hard time launching games outside its borders, but hopefully Black Myth Wukong can make a successful journey to the West. And next up, haptic feedback is one of those buzzwords going into the next generation, although I'm not sure how many gamers actually give a shit. I personally really enjoy this kind of stuff when it's implemented well into games, and I even liked the DualShock 4's speaker, which most people I talk to seem to absolutely hate. In a new PlayStation blog post, some developers have shared how the new haptic features of the DualSense controller will work, and there's some pretty interesting ideas. With Insomniac's Spider-Man Miles Morales, creative director Brian Horton said that you'll be able to feel Miles' Venom Strike ability move through the controller. Because of the high resolution of DualSense wireless controller's haptic system, we can really push the dimensionality of the feedback. For instance, as you hold down square to do a venom punch, you feel Spider-Man's bioelectricity crackle from the left side of the controller, culminating in the right side on impact. This sort of stuff is normally just subtle vibrations that you generally don't consciously notice, but I really like it as it adds to the sense of immersion even if you aren't aware of it. Unfortunately, this sort of stuff is only worthwhile if the developers actually making games choose to add these features, meaning that it may end up just as a cool gimmick. Another example of how interesting the new haptic capabilities can be used is with Deathloop by Arcane Studios. Game director Dinga Bakaba shared his excitement for how the adaptive triggers will respond to different actions in-game. I'm really excited by the adaptive triggers and the haptic feedback, both features that will bring some physicality in-game experiences and give important feedback. Deathloop being a first-person shooter, we do a lot of things to make weapons feel differently from one another. One I like is blocking the triggers when your weapon jams to give the player an immediate feedback even before the animation plays out, which prompts the player in a physical way that they have to unjam their gun. Having your trigger behave differently when your gun jams sounds like a really cool concept that conveys information to you even quicker than on-screen indicators, but it could end up being really annoying. If your gun is repeatedly jamming throughout the game, this could easily go from a fun mechanic to a tedious feature. However, if that only happens sparingly, it could definitely add to a sense of immersion that you really are embodying this character and their actions. Again, other developers must capitalize on these kinds of features, otherwise they'll just end up being completely useless. Elsewhere in the blog post, other developers reference the new forms of haptic feedback, but few go into any specific examples beyond those already mentioned. Ghostwire Tokyo's director Kenji Kimura said that his game will use haptic triggers to create a sensation of recoil to offer players detailed, textured nuances. The directors of Horizon Forbidden West, Demon's Souls, Godfall, and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart all briefly explain how the different bows, swords, or guns will feel unique from each other when the trigger is pulled in their games, while titles like Gran Turismo 7 will make the trigger feel more like a real pedal as you brake and accelerate. Personally, I really enjoy all this sort of stuff, and it sounds really interesting to me, but this kind of thing has been promised in the past and not gone anywhere. Hopefully these features are actually well implemented and add to the games in a meaningful way, but we won't know until we actually get our hands on with a controller as an individual. Are you interested in any of this sort of stuff, or are you perfectly comfortable with your controller as is, or a simple mouse and keyboard? And finally, Epic Games continues its exclusivity crusade and has now acquired Hitman 3 as a timed PC exclusive. The game is set to launch in January 2021 on Epic Games Store, PS4 and 5, Xbox One and Series X, and Google Stadia. As usual with Epic exclusivity, this is quite a controversial decision, especially for such a popular IP. The game is being developed by IO Interactive as usual, but this time it will be self-published too, as studio head Hakan Abrak explains. Self-publishing Hitman 3 is a big step for IO Interactive in achieving our highly ambitious goals as an independent studio. Furthermore, this partnership with Epic has given us the freedom to create the game exactly as we imagined, for our fans and for our community uncompromised. For our long-term fans that have supported us on the World of Assassination journey, we're happy to have mastery and location carryover from their existing progress into Hitman 3 on Epic Games Store. Now, this doesn't really mean much to me as I'm a very surface level fan of Hitman, but I'm sure this is the blow to some of you. But my question is this the latest move by Epic to fracture the player base of a popular game, or is it a good way to ensure Hitman games continue to be made? This case is a tricky one because IO Interactive has been in financial difficulties recently since it split from Square Enix, and it even almost went bankrupt a few years ago. Could this be the only way to keep funding going for Hitman games at all? Again, this doesn't really affect me in the slightest, but what do you think? Do you feel betrayed by the devs, or are you happy so long as you get more Agent 47? And that's it for today. If you enjoyed this no shit format, go ahead and give the video a like to give it a boost, hit subscribe and the bell if you want to stay up to date on all future installments, toss a coin to your YouTuber over at patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. I've been Henry Cooper, that's all for today, bye for now.